When we get to this point, it loads the boot order from RAM, okay? And it checks to see and load it if it's found. And whether that's Windows 10, Windows 8, Windows 7, or some other operating system. If it doesn't find it, you get an error. In this case, it says operating system not found. The errors aren't always clear, but they're usually black and white, like this. And so you kind of have to get used to what's wrong. Operating system not found. There's a variety of reasons that can happen. It could happen because we've set the boot order wrong and we haven't included the hard drive. And that's where the operating system is. Or maybe it's on a flash drive. I just pointed to a flash drive you can't see. That's PowerPoint's on. Or maybe it's supposed to be on a CD-ROM and that wasn't checked in our boot order, but it can't be found. So we need to make sure when we go into BIOS that we have it pointing to wherever we've got our operating system at, so that Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 10, whatever we're running, loads when it gets to that point in the start sequence. So the startup BIOS looks to the CMOS to determine what device it wants us to boot from based on the order that we put in, and then it looks for that master boot record on those devices. So we set up that list of, hey, look here, then look here, then look here, and it looks at those in those order so that it looks for something it can boot from. If you say it's going to be a flash drive, then a boot record has to be on this flash drive that you've set it up that way, or wherever you want it to boot from. So it's real important that we set it up in the order that's best for us. So it looks for that boot record, then it finds the operating system and it loads it into memory. If you remember from chapter 1, the difference between primary and secondary storage. Secondary storage is that permanent storage, hard drives, flash drives, CD-ROMs, that the CPU cannot talk to. So it takes the information on that permanent secondary storage, loads it into the primary storage or memory, and then the CPU can interact with it and load it, and it can load Windows. So the slower our secondary storage is, the harder it is to get it into primary storage, and the longer it takes the computer to load it, which is why some people that have traditional hard drives get so upset about how long it takes for Windows to load, because it's loading into memory. Once it's in memory, if you have a lot of memory, it's going to run almost as fast as one that's on a solid state drive. So this is a graphic of what it's doing. Basically, it's the BIOS program is looking in the CMOS chip. It's loading that information from the CMOS chip to say, where should I look for the operating system? Do it in this order. And the better we set up the order, the faster it will get to find it and then load it. And that's why we have on your laptops, the hard drive is first, the network is second. We don't even have the CD-ROM turned on because we don't expect you to be loading an operating system from a CD-ROM here at Trail. That master boot record on a physical disk is in an exact location, but on anything else, it's just loaded in there in a table in memory on a flash drive or on a solid state drive that it loads from. The longer it takes to find it and load it, the slower it is for the operating system to be completed and presented to us to start using the computer. So of all these kinds of permanent storage, which are all secondary storage, the best one to have it on is a solid state drive, meaning there's no moving components, and it's far faster than this kind of memory. And that's what you all have in your laptops, and that's why our laptops, even though they're second generation i5s and i7s, some of them are third generation, are way faster than some computers that are newer. The Air Force, which I just retired from, only seems to buy spinny drives. So they get rid of perfectly good stuff because the operating system is loaded on a slow media, the traditional hard drive. So all these are secondary storage, but the one we're using on ours is right there, and I'm talking about flash drives right there. that's it until we get to the operating system itself, and that's the topic of the next video. Hi, okay, so what is an operating system? I found this great graphic, but who cares? Just says operating system and then all. The operating system is the largest single program, the most important one on your device, on your computer, on your phone, on your laptop, on your iPad, on your tablet, whatever. They all have operating systems. iOS, whatever version you're on, 13 on your iPhone or your iPad, or whatever version of Android that's running, or whatever version of Windows is running, the operating system, after the hardware boots from BIOS, is the first thing that gets loaded. It provides us the interaction between user and hardware. The operating system and the software that we use is what lets us interact and use this hardware on a daily basis. So the operating system is the largest, most important program on the computer. There's lots of different operating systems out there. Here at school, we're used to using Microsoft operating systems. When we got here, we were on Windows 2nd Edition, Windows 98 2nd Edition. After that, we had Windows 2000, Windows ME, Windows XP, Windows 7, Windows 8, Windows 8.1, and now Windows 10. And I have used all the way back to the disk operating system DOS. That's a list of operating systems from Microsoft. Apple has different Mac operating systems, and they have iOS operating systems for portable devices. And then there's one that's an open source one that you may or may not used before called Linux. It's what the Android operating system is based on or built off of. And we're going to take a look at the Microsoft operating systems and how to install it. And Linux, I don't have Macs to be able to do that with. So we won't be able to use the Apple operating systems in this class, but we will install and play and see how to install a Windows operating system and Linux operating system as well. That operating system, as I've already said, is what allows us to interact with our hardware. It's what makes it all worth it. Without a good operating system, your hardware is worthless. Windows Vista, I didn't mention that one because we never used it, came out terribly in its initial release, and everyone hated Windows Vista when it came out, and you guys may be too young to remember Windows Vista. But it made perfectly good things run perfectly terrible. It manages the hardware. It lets us run our application. It provides the interface, what's called a graphical user interface, or a GUI. GUI is graphical user interface. The operating system provides that graphical user interface to us that is Windows 10. And it allows us to store, retrieve, and to manipulate files, right? So that's the purpose of the operating system. Allows us to use our hardware, allows us to run programs, allows us to store and retrieve stuff.